welcome to today's live stream. Today's live stream is about colliding tectonic plates, fossils that are found in these tectonic plates, and then we're just going to go into, so we're going to do a drawing of the tectonic plates colliding. It's going to kind of look like a bit of mush. It's kind of hard to turn that into something so recognizable. But then we're going to jump over to fossils and the whole idea behind like the design that you can see in these fossils of, like, let's say seashells. So what's neat is that we have paintings from the 16th century, and they're by Leonardo da Vinci, and he's not the first, but he's an early mind that's contemplating, okay, what's going on when like plates collide and like worlds, you know, go like that. So do any of you know about the tectonic plates, like let's say in the United States of America? Does anyone know like where some tectonic plates might be? Does anyone have any clue? You could just like write down like a region. You don't have to like name a specific fault or anything like that. But I just want to see if you guys know about that. I see a few of you typing. And so as you do that, I'll pass off a few different tectonic plate like lines. And again, I'm not going into any specifics here, but you have the tectonic plate on the east side of the United States of America. And so that, just think of like the broad flat plains of the Midwest. And then you have the tectonic plate to the west of that. And the tectonic plates meet and they collide. And so when that happens, you can see my fingers going up like that from all that pressure. So you can have mountain ranges formed from those tectonic plates. So you guys are smart. As I talk to you guys and as we go through things, I hear you guys pass along information that I don't know at all. So I am no professional on this. I'm really giving you the artistic end of it. But I want to jump over to an image of, it's by Leonardo da Vinci. And in this painting by Leonardo da Vinci, this is called The Virgin of the Rocks. And it's really beautiful painting. It's a painting of Mary with Jesus, John the Baptist, and then there's an angel there. And as you look at the background, you can see these amazing spires like coming out. And those are actually formed, going back to that same idea of plates colliding like this, those are actually formed by the collision of plates. And so Leonardo da Vinci is using a commission that he received to do a painting that's of a spiritual nature, but he's using that as an excuse to explore geological, like, you know, concerns. So, okay, so I see we got here the San Andreas Fault. Ding, ding, ding. Absolutely, Daniel, you got that right. It's the San Andreas Fault. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a copy of a Da Vinci. And that sounds really intimidating. But we're just going to do the plates, and we're just going to do a quick, like, rough out sketch of them meeting like that, because that's also going to help us with the next thing with the fossils. So with that, why don't you pick up your paper, and we got our paper and our pencils. Actually, put your paper down, pick up your pencil, and then we're all ready to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip back and forth between this screen and my paper. It might be cool for you to also see another painting by Leonardo da Vinci where he's exploring these same themes. So how many of you guys recognize most famous painting pretty much? I'm going to be a mean person for a second, say like, I don't love this painting. I don't dislike it, and I don't particularly love it. I think the portrait is, I don't know, it doesn't really grab me. That's just me personally. But man, look at the background with all those rocks. I think that looks really cool. As you look off to the side there, you see all these like rocks coming out of the distance. I kind of wonder if modern day creators of movies actually drew inspiration, like for like something like Lord of the Rings, things of that sort, from the geological formations that you see in Leonardo da Vinci's work. So again, we're going to be copying some of the spires that we see in the background of Leonardo da Vinci's adoration of the Virgin of the Rocks. So I'm going to just start out with like a really simple formation. Again, this isn't the meat and potatoes of today's lesson in terms of like artistic content, but it's kind of cool to see how he's trying to figure out what is going on here. So I always love like bringing it back to drawing back to like one thing. When I'm drawing, I am drawing with an attempt to understand the world around me. I'm not just like visibly working out details so that I can make the thing look like the thing. But instead, like I'm using drawing as like an exploration device, which is, to me, that's really fun. So if you look right there, I just have like a basic spire. And what I'm doing is I'm zooming in on, I don't know if you can see it right there, that spire right there in the middle. So as you are looking, what I would suggest to you is try to the best of your ability, just take the pressure off yourself for like a pretty drawing today. And don't come out of drawing these spires as like, oh my goodness, I drew something that looks like a blob. But instead, see how Leonardo da Vinci is looking at the sedimentary layers of rock, and as they meet each other, so they go up like that, and kind of, you see the way my fingers will like kind of like form layers? Well, he, on the inside of these geological formations, he also has these really cool, like almost topographical lines. And again, he didn't have to do all of this. When you look at other artists from this period, they would execute commissions, and there would be no such information behind their portrait sitters' heads. But he used it as an opportunity. He had an audience. He had a chance to really work out some of his exploratory drawing ideas in the world of paint. So, okay, so we're going to go down like this right here. And okay, so we have that roughly mapped out. Let's blend it, let's shade it in quickly with our hands like so, or with our pencils, and then our hands. All right, so we got that. And then the one behind it is a little bit darker. And I'm just gonna go like that. Okay, so now one of the things that adds visual interest to Leonardo's work is if the entire painting by Da Vinci were just only like rocks at like one level, it wouldn't be that interesting. But what he does is Da Vinci will also do something neat where he gives us something called atmospheric perspective. So how many of you guys know about atmospheric perspective? Is there anyone? If you know about it, you could write it in the comments. But atmospheric perspective is this, and this was actually first written down in history by Leonardo da Vinci. And he said, when you look at an object in front of you, you're not just looking at the object in front of you, you're looking at the object in front of you plus the air in between you and the object. So have any of you guys ever gone to like the beach on a really humid day and you're driving like, and you look in front of you, it's really hot out, and everything in the distance is just like all hazy? There's so much humidity in the air that it causes everything in the distance to just really fade out, right? To give you another example, if you go to the desert, there's like very little water vapor in the air, and so you can see crystal clear for like miles and miles and miles. It's not the case here on Long Island where some of us are from. But as you look over here, you can see that there are all these spires that go into the distance. And so these spires that go into the distance, they're really, really soft as they go into a distance. So what I do, and this is a great opportunity to study this, I use atmospheric perspective, just like Leonardo da Vinci. I'm just copying him. And then you can make that thing seem further away. So we have on this call today a young woman who does comic book drawings, and I really like her work, and she's been in the studio, and this is actually something that young woman can use when she's trying to give depth to something in her comic books, where really great artists like let's say Bill Watterson. Does anyone here read Calvin and Hobbes just by raising your hand? Calvin and Hobbes, great, we got some fans. All right, I'm like the biggest Calvin and Hobbes fan that there possibly could be. So Calvin and Hobbes, for me, I just think it's visually, it's just so beautifully drawn. And so Calvin and Hobbes, the author, Bill Watterson, would use atmospheric perspective to make things feel really far away. So he would have Calvin and Hobbes in a wagon. Do you guys know those comics where he's in a wagon, like barreling down the hill? And then you see the two of them talking, and then the trees in the distance just kind of melt away. Well, he's using this principle right here. So let's put another mound right here. Again, we're showing colliding plates. So let's put another mound right here. And if you ever get the chance, if there's a museum near your house, like recently, I just had a day to myself. My wife took the kids, and so I just hopped on I hopped in my truck, and I drove to New York City, and I went into the Metropolitan Museum. And if you ever get a chance to go to a museum with your parents, go in and take a look at the amazing ink scrolls. In the Japanese section, you'll have Korean and you'll have Chinese, but you have these amazing drawings, and these drawings are just incredible. And I'm actually going to pull one up for you because it just popped into my head. You guys can keep on drawing the cliffs there. And I'm going to pull this up to show you guys because I think it's so awesome. And so I have a personal theory. I actually think that Leonardo da Vinci, when he was looking at his geological formations, I actually think that he was studying, I think that they had access to texts that he was able to, like, let's say like study, look at, and see like what was going on in let's say in Japan or something like that. Because if you think about it, Marco Polo, he actually went to the Middle East, and then he went to the Far East. And so I'm going to bring you guys over right now. So take a look at this, and I hope I can zoom in on it pretty good. And look at these cliffs. This is a beautiful piece at the Metropolitan Museum. And look at those cliffs rising out right there. I mean, myself personally, I think that's so cool. And a lot of people nowadays, they like Japanese animation. I love Chinese, Japanese, and Korean scrolls. I think they're so beautiful. So check that out. Look at that. Doesn't that kind of look like what we've been drawing? So jumping back to our drawing, you can use all these things, but don't feel restricted by them as if like you have to have like, a dry geological formation. But think of like, you can create worlds with this. You can create castles coming out of the mist. You can create like a lot of cool different things. So, all right, so I'm gonna outline this a little bit stronger over here. Just let this go into shadow. I'm just trying to show the plates forming. And then I'm going to add in an element from that Japanese scroll. You can put like little people if you want on top. And to put a little person on top, like just gives it like significance. So you probably cannot see that on your screen right there. I'll do my best to zoom in on it, but there is Kevin. There I am, and I am on top of the cliff right there, and I'm a tiny little guy, and I am going to be up there with my dog Tess. I have no idea how Tess was able to climb this high, but good for Tess, my dog made it. And so there I am with my dog Tess on top of these cliffs. So again, when you are ever drawing something, if you want to personalize it and you put like a human figure into it, it gives it like so much more. All right, so we have done the cliffs with the colliding tectonic plates and different things like that. Now we're going to jump over to nautilus shells, and we're going to talk about some fossils. The specific fossil that I'm going to show you, the nautilus shell, I'm not saying they found it at a tip of a mountain, but what's interesting is they will find fossils sometimes like way up high in mountains because the plates used to be low, and then as they collided, we're told that the fossils went up like that. Either that or maybe proof of like a huge flood at times, things of that sort. But I'm not going into any of those specifics. I'm just saying we're going to talk about where the world of geology meets the world of, like, let's say, the animal kingdom, or in this case specifically, I think we're dealing with mollusks. All right, so I have my drawing right here. I'm just going to slide over just a little bit. And then I'm going to talk about this one particular fossilized shell. So it's this nautilus. I could have the wrong name of it if I don't have like the correct species. Like, forgive me. I don't always know the exact name of things. But what's really cool about this is you can see inside of these fossils, you can actually see mathematical order. So if any of you guys have ever gone to a beach and you've looked and you've come across like shells, there's actually mathematical order in the shells that you look at. So if you look at this shell right here, this is called a nautilus seashell, and it's been cut right down the middle. And the nautilus seashell, it actually has a perfect mathematical order. A lot of people will say that it's a proof of, like, let's say it's a correlation to what's called a golden ratio. It's not exactly a perfect golden ratio, and there's mathematical reasons why. A perfect golden ratio, I believe it has to increase the magnitude of 4 all the time, but that's getting really confusing. So all that you need to know is when you look at it, you can see this amazing order that you can then, in my opinion, it's pretty cool. You can then take the mathematics behind it. So what I want you to do is, to the best of your ability, I want you, well, you know what, let's do the math for it first. So the math for the golden ratio is 1 plus 1 equals 2. There. So I am a genius. So 1 plus 1 equals 2. Aren't you glad you take courses with me? You would be hopelessly lost without me telling you that 1 plus 1 equals 2. Really makes you want to tune in next week, right? So 1 plus 1 equals 2. But now ready? Now I'll go 2 plus 1 equals 3. Or I'm going to flip that around. 1 plus 2 equals 3. Just for the sake of tidiness, because you're going to start to see a pattern. So, let me see how, oh no, 2 plus 1 equals 3. Then 3 plus 2 equals 5. And then 5 plus 3 equals 8. And so on it goes until you get this ever expanding order where as the numbers increase, you can see it's an exponential increase. So you can say, well, what the heck does this have to do with the shell? Well, when you look at the shell, what you can see is you can actually see that the box of the shape of the shell, it increases by the same mathematical order every time. So this box right here, let's call this 2. Then this box next to it is 3. And then this box next to it is 5. And that one next to that is 8. And if you're getting really lost, don't worry, we're going to bring it around pretty soon. The next one after that, I'm going to stop with all the numbers, but every single time the box is increasing by the golden ratio. And when you do this and you increase, you see the size doubling. Well, it's not doubling, it's increasing by a magnitude, I think, of 4. Then the box gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it could go on for all eternity. And then the box gets huge like that. And I'll do a couple last marks. But check this out. When you put an arc through that, what you actually get is this shape right here. Do you see the arc going through the box every time? And every single time the arc goes through the box, you get a massive spiral like that. So that massive spiral is directly connected to, let me jump over, that massive spiral is directly connected to the nautilus shell. So let's jump back to our nautilus shell and take a look at how that nautilus shell has that order to it. And we just did that spiral shape, and now check out one over. There's the spiral that we were just talking about. So at the top of these geological formations can be found fossilized things such as shells. And so I thought it'd be cool to link together the worlds of geology and, let's say, animals. And let's now draw a nautilus shell down here. So I'm going to just start it roughly right here, and I'm going to spin out. I'm looking at my drawing up here. I'm going to go like this. And there we go. I've spun out. And this could go on for infinity, so can this, but we're just going to kind of stop it right there. And then what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you go in and put little tiny arcs. So I'm going to zoom in to do this so that you can see in a little bit more detail. And I'm going to put in a series of tiny little arcs. So it goes and it fans out. So these arcs are going to be hard for you to see until the whole entire thing starts to get much bigger. And we're starting to get the whole idea of the shell. Okay, so like roughly right there, that's the cross section of a nautilus shell. You know, you could do it like a whole lot better. In fact, I could do another drawing over here and show you how, okay, I want to get this, but I want to go with like more detail. So you can do like a bunch of nautilus shells. You don't have to do like one, you can do several. But then what we're going to do is we're going to light them from the side so that we can give it like convincing form. So, okay, so I'm going to, again, I'm going to do my arcs over here. And it may be hard for you to see. I'll try to zoom in on that just a little bit. And so I'm doing my arcs. Obviously, if we wanted to do this precisely, we could do it and measure everything out. And there's use in that. It's not like a useless activity. But I'm going to keep it more on like the visible side of things, just like simplified. All right, so my arcs have gotten a little sloppy. I'm going to try to tidy them up more. Turning the form more and more. All right, so now I want to give this some light, like let's say from this direction right here. So if I'm gonna light this, then everything on the inside of the shell is going to be in shadow. So I brought out this coffee cup so that you could see an example of what it is I'm talking about. So if light is hitting this from right here, then everything over here is gonna be in shadow and it's gonna be light right here. So as I look at this, that means that the inside of the shell right here is all going to be in shadow. So go ahead and glaze, like kind of like shade right over the whole inside of the shell right here. And if this makes your head spin in terms of the detail, we'll work big and broad, and then whoever wants to take it to a higher level later, you can do it in your own time. All right, so we go right on the inside right here. Going back to our coffee cup, if light is hitting at this direction right here, if light's hitting right here and it's shadow on the inside over here, well then I am going to have light here on my drawing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fan out and I'm going to have light landing right here. So no shadow here, shadow here. Well, okay, this is spiraling in. This also receives light. This is in shadow. So it's interesting how something like this, if I told you guys to draw a nautilus shell without any of the knowledge behind it, you guys probably could have done a pretty good job. But now that you know that there's actually like real order in this, and you understand kind of like how the thing progresses, you can bring the understanding that you've developed and you can say, okay, well, if this is in shadow right here and light is hitting right here, and then you can either take a blending stump or your finger, either one, and you can start to unify all that shade. I use a blending stump because I can get more precise with blending stump. and blending stump right here. All right, cool. So now what I want for you guys to do is to go into the individual cells just right here and start to get a little bit darker. And one of the things I do is I actually keep a section next to my desk where I sharpen my pencils on regular sandpaper. So this is just regular sandpaper. This is my very clean and tidy desk that you can see right here. And I use that to quickly get like a real sharp point. So now what I'm going to do is right up against the wall of the shell on the shadow side, I'm going to like get like pretty precise. I'm going to get pretty dark. So I'm going specific, like right up against that. All right, so we're getting kind of like the information, like more like, kind of like specific. We're gonna double back over here and we're gonna get a little bit darker and more detail right up against the wall of this. And again, up against the wall of this. All right, so I'm gonna get my blending stump out again, and I'm just gonna blend that in. And can you guys see how it's starting to actually feel like it has like a certain like mass to it? So if I wanted to push this really far, then you can start to give like each particular turn, you can start to define the shape of how these compartments like flare out. I'm not gonna do it for this drawing, because I think it's more worthwhile for us to just push it to a certain level, and then whoever wants to run with it after that can. I actually forgot to put this whole section in right here, this whole shadow. So I'm gonna hit that with shadow. I'm gonna darken it with my fingers. And it's interesting to me that there are a lot of artists over the course of time. I've seen a lot of paintings done by artists of the nautilus shell because they just think it's a really beautiful thing. And so it's really gaining form now. If you want, I ran out of room on my paper, but if you put like a really dark cast shadow behind it, then it will make it feel like it's actually like, you know, sitting on a surface, like maybe the sand, or maybe it's sitting on a table or something of that sort. And I'm just gonna blend that. And then maybe I'll end the drawing. I have my little demo over here. Maybe I'll pull back on that just a little bit. I have pieces of paper that have tons of drawings on them, and it can get a little bit sloppy where they all start to overlap each other. But I actually think it can also make the whole entire drawing look pretty cool. So, okay, getting more specific with that. So one of the things I thought would be fun to run back into is back into our cliffs. So we've gotten the geological formations. We have a fossilized shell that might be found on cliffs right here. And so I thought it would be cool to go back and to then look at the amazing the paintings that are at the Metropolitan Museum. And if you guys want, we can start adding detail into our cliffs. And so to add detail into these cliffs, again, I'm drawing inspiration for sure from these amazing, just like, look at the trees like coming off like right here. I just think it looks so cool. And so I wanted you guys to kind of run with it. Sometimes they have like temples. So I believe those are like Buddhist temples. To tell you the truth, I don't know for sure if it's Confucianism or Buddhist. I just pulled up an image quickly. But I'm going to go back in my drawing. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add like more things to this. So if you want, at the base of your cliffs, if you've done my other drawing courses, what you can do is you can add, like, let's say at the base right over here, you could add in like a castle or something of that sort. So I'm not really sure what I'm going to do. I'm just kind of like carving out space. I'm going to see where my imagination just takes me. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit right here. And I'm just going to, maybe I'm going to draw kind of what is similar to like what I saw in that other piece at the Metropolitan Museum. And let me see, I'm going to zoom out here. So some classes we like hyper focus in drawing, and then other classes we bounce around a lot. And I kind of do that on purpose sometimes because it's good to really, really focus on some material. As an artist, I can work on one drawing of one thing for like 4 or 5 hours, and like I'll work on it so hard that at a certain point I have to like tell myself, okay, you got to stop doing this because you're getting obsessed. So I've never had a difficulty with focusing on one thing, but I also have another part of my brain that I give full rein to, and I allow myself to kind of like just explore on paper. Like if you ask me, if you look at that paper and you see all these things like golden ratios and cliffs and temples and stuff like that, I personally think it looks really fun. All right, so I'm putting this in. There are the shingles on the roof right there. I come down to the side here. So if you want to put whatever you want to put in here, just go ahead and put the thing that you think might be cool. So like if you want to put a castle in, if you want to put, I don't know, a ship that crashed into the side of it. And this is where the worlds of science and the world of really the imagination can just kind of like meet. And there are artists out there who you can tell that when they're drawing and painting that they're really just having a great time, just like letting their brain meander. And I'm going to put more tiles right here, and then I'll show you a little bit what I'm looking at right there. So you can see that really cool structure. I just think that looks so amazing. And I'm just kind of copying it, not entirely. So today's class was kind of fun in that it was a wandering class. We looked at some Renaissance paintings in the beginning by Leonardo da Vinci. Then after that, we looked at the mathematical order that's seen in the golden ratio. We saw generally how that concept of an exponential spiral was applied in a nautilus seashell. And now we're kind of stitching it all together in some Fantasia element. And a really neat thing here on Long Island, there's a town called Port Jefferson. I don't know if you guys have heard of Port Jefferson. One time I was invited by this woman and her husband. She was the president. Her husband was the president of Stony Brook University, and they invited me over their house just to hang out and just like talk. And so I was over her house, and she had built a Japanese pagoda on the side of the hill. Her house was a Japanese pagoda on the side of the hill in Port Jefferson. It was one of the most amazing houses I've ever seen in my whole life. Everything was done so well, and they had spent a lot of time in Japan. And so I'm kind of thinking of that as I draw this right here. And it might be fun for us to now jump back and look once again at the cliffs by Leonardo da Vinci and to think about like those formations right there, and can we get the realistic formations up against the cliffs right here. So I'm curious, do you guys think that maybe the Italian Renaissance artists, that they were actually seeing Japanese, Chinese, and Korean scrolls? I think it's a possibility. There was a lot of commerce between, it was the Silk trade, it was the Silk Road, and we know that there was, like, let's say the technology of paper that was invented in China. I think it was in like 32 BC. Then it made its way to Iran. After it's made its way to India and Iran, then it finally went to southern Spain, and after southern Spain, then it went to northern Italy. So there was a lot of like commerce going back and forth. So, okay, I'm going to zoom out once more and just take a look at everything that we did today. So I would love to see your drawings and see what you guys produced in class today. So with that wraps up our lesson, the drawing end of what I've done. But if you guys want, if you hold up your pages, and Daniel, I can see some of your drawings. I see the Golden Gate Bridge as kind of a screensaver, and then I see just a tiny little pinhole of your drawing. So, oh, cool. That looks amazing. Rosie Caston, that looks really, really cool. So I know that's not your name. I'm going by the names on the screen because I don't want to use the children's names. So, really cool. Can I see that again? Can you hold it up again? Let's see. You got that really well. The cascading cliffs with like it looks like there's like a base of like water at the bottom. That's so fun. That's really, really fun. And don't you think the nautilus seashells look kind of cool for no reason up against all that? It's kind of like some like Fantasia like element. Like, whoa, it doesn't fit, but it kind of like makes your imagination like go crazy. So I thought it'd be fun to jump back over to the, actually let me jump back over to the amazing cliffs in this ink scroll. So we could just like, I don't know, just like kind of like admire, like as I go like this, ask your parents for permission to see if you can go on, like let's say the Metropolitan Museum, into their, into the wing of their departments that deals, like look at these beautiful like birds like flying off into the distance. Isn't that so cool? And they create these entire worlds with such like economy, like such like very little. There's a little boat down there. It's such an amazing scroll. And these scrolls can sometimes be like 10, 15 feet long. They're so unbelievable. And you can just look at them, just one scroll for hours. It's like, when you look at the amazing way that they render the trees, I just really love it. So, wacky, meandering lesson today, on purpose. We wandered all over the place. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. Next week we have a whole just lineup of classes. I am actually going to next week be streaming live from Maine. I'm bringing my whole setup up to Maine, and so if I have a little bit of glitchiness and funny connection, I think we'll have a good connection. I'm told the connection's good where we're staying. But what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be taking some local elements from Maine. So what can you guys think of that's up in Maine? I mean, I don't even need to have you write it in the comments, but I'm going to see if I can get my hands on a live lobster and set them up in front of the camera and show you guys how you can draw like a live lobster. I think that would be so cool. And I'll teach you how to reduce all the shapes and stuff like that. I just think it'd be hilarious if like you panned over and like you saw like a live like lobster like clattering on the table, and I'm like trying to control it. So it's gonna be a fun class. So I look forward to it. So to everyone who tuned in, there's a lot of you. I actually can't see all the names here because it keeps going down. But thank you guys so much, and I look forward to next week, Tuesday at 2:30. Talk to you then, guys.